And we are live.
Good evening, all. I am calling this meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board to order. Today we are March the 22nd, 2022. This is our 43rd virtual meeting. Melissa, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Rios,
Here.
Vice Chair Katz,
Here.
Member Bienvenue,
Here.
Member Guida,
Here.
Member Larson,
Here.
and I understand Member Beachside is excused. Madam Chair, you
That's
have
correct.
a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Anyone?
None from staff.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Rita moves to approve.
Cat seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. We do not have minutes, but we do have 9 findings of fact and conclusions of law. Any changes to any of these? It appears not. I will entertain a motion, please.
Bienvenue moves to approve.
Rita seconds.
And excuse me, there were 10 findings and conclusions. Roll call vote, please. Melissa?
Yes, ma'am. Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Melissa. We go to matters from the public. Anyone from the public wishing to make any kind of a statement at this time? I don't see any hands up, so we have no one from the public of making a statement. We will go on to our business for this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, we have 9 cases. I do need to inform you that if you disagree with the decision that this board renders this evening, you do have the option to appeal to the city council. And that would be after the findings and conclusions have been approved. And then you have 15 days after that to make your appeal. So with that being said, we will go to the first case on the agenda, which is located at 342 Plaza Valentine. And this is Daniel's case. Daniel, may we hear from you, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna share my screen. If it could please be enabled. We're dealing with Plaza Valentine, which is a rather complex series of structures. The applicant also has a slideshow, but I think it's somewhat duplicated. So, Mr. Martinez, I'm sure, I hope you will understand. Sorry if there is some duplication. It's a contributing property with 3 structures plus yard walls, located in the downtown and east side. It evolved through a series of phases, probably beginning with the carport, which is shown in this left. These are the same diagram twice. Let's see if I can make it a bit bigger. This is the carport, and then a casita at the back, and then the house, which evolved through numerous phases. These 2 diagrams don't exactly account for all the facades. So you can see there's some areas here where it's not quite clear to which epoch certain additions belong. But anyway, this can all be considered historic, everything except for the portion near the street. The walls are also from the 1950s, according to an aerial plan, although they may have been increased in height. The coping, which you find on all of the facades or all of the structures, is the same as the coping on the wall, so that it's likely that the wall was raised or refinished maybe in the 1970s when that last portion was constructed. I recommended a series of designations for primary facades, and I'll go through the facades here. Mr. Martinez, I've put the the photos and site plan and elevation drawings together to try and give us a unified view of each facade. The board, some of you went to visit the property today. I will try and point out the more character defining facades as we go. So we begin at the north, facade 1. Facade 2 is this wall along the street. It's part of the non-historic structure. Facade, so maybe that was facade 4. Here's facade 2, which is recommended as a primary facade, this large historic window. Facade 3 doesn't have a whole lot to offer in terms of character. Facades 5 through 10 are a little bit of a hodgepodge. We did observe today that the window here on the left, which is not shown in the diagram, mirrors a window here, number 12. You can see where my cursor is, there's a window here, and window 10, which is photographed, is identical. Thanks to Mr. Benvenu for pointing this out. So possibly this is a character defining feature in the building. It's a very simple 1960s, I guess, single pane, large window, very vernacularly installed. Here we see facade 11. Sorry, the number is wrong at the bottom. It actually includes 2 historic phases, the one on the right being somewhat later. However, this general unity, which we see in a later facade also, I'm recommending to be character defining. Here is again that door and window marked into a single unit. This window mirroring the facade 10 window, recommending as primary. Then there are a number of small facades as one come around the corner. 13 and 14 and 15. Then we arrive at 16, which is the entrance, again with a large historic window and overhanging roof. This is the entrance, part of the historic, I think the original structure. It's not quite clear from the historic diagram. Recommended as primary. This is then on the side, minor facade. Number 18, we had some discussion about this also being a primary facade. We're not sure if the window is original, but maybe. It's certainly historic. Then we come to the carport. This is the back of the carport. An interesting kind of design, not so well captured by this photograph. Maybe I can get you another one. I think we have one. This is the front of the carport, designated as primary in the sense that it is character defining, not so much in the sense that it's a facade, but the sloping wall on the right, the narrowing of the carport, low beam, the general proportions, I would consider character defining for this structure. Here is the casita, the rear portion. This is the front elevation, recommended as primary. And then there's an outdoor shade structure, according to the HCPI, the most interesting structure, with 2 facades. Facade 28 and 27 are recommended primary in the staff report. Perhaps only 28 is the character defining. Here I have an overview of the recommended primary facades. Those with an asterisk, I would put even further in the foreground. The ones without the asterisk have also been recommended, but are perhaps open to debate and secondary primary importance. That's my report. Perhaps the applicant has something to add. Otherwise, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Daniel, for your report, and thank you for this, these last elevations that clearly show us which facades you are recommending for primary. So in your report, you indicated that the carport, the casita, and the shade structure are independent, stand independent of one another, and then the main house is also a large structure that has a lot of different facades to it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Board members, anyone needing to ask Daniel any type of clarification question? Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just for clarification, Daniel, do you consider the historic status that's been attributed to this property as contributing to apply to every structure on the property, or do we need to separately designate any of them in order to be sure that they are contributing? And if we do that, do we also need to designate primary facades for each of them?
Thanks for the question. The status was probably designated as part of a mass designation that occurred in the 80s, empowered by the governing body. At that time, there was not so much differentiation as we have today. The property is considered contributing, and I believe that applies to all buildings. As far as that's the short answer. The walls, I think there wasn't any practice of contributing or giving status to walls, so that they don't currently have a status. I could have a look in, the only data that we have is from the GIS. I can have a look once again in the GIS to confirm that all those are contributing. That's my understanding.
Okay,
So,
because it appears to me, thank you for that. It appears to me that definitely the main residence, the casita, the portal / pergola structure would all be considered contributing, in my opinion. And I would just want to be sure that that's reflected in the record if there's any ambiguity. And then that would leave the one that I don't think is addressed, one structure that I don't think is addressed in your recommendations, which is that privacy wall along the eastern boundary of the property that was considered in the report to be historic and does seem to be an important part of the property. Do you consider that to be contributing or not?
I would consider it to be unstatused right
Okay.
now because of the previous practices.
Would it make sense for us to go ahead and status that at this time, and is it even possible to do so?
Not everything has to be statused. It usually only becomes relevant when an applicant wishes to make a change. I'm not sure that we have quite enough data because we don't. It's clear that a wall existed along that footprint, but it may have been raised. I'm not sure that we could get more data on whether it was raised. Personally, I don't think it would harm it to leave it or to designate it, to give you an ambiguous answer.
Okay. I think that the, Carly, did you want to mention something? I saw you hand.
Sure.
Waving.
As a practice, it saves applicants and the board lots of time if we can status walls as part of cases. If the board finds that we have enough here to status a wall or walls, then that is ideal.
Okay. I noted that in Mr. Murphy's report that he recommended that the older portion of the privacy wall be designated as contributing based on its historic status. So to me, that would satisfy that standard. So I would propose that we add statusing of the wall to our whatever motion is finally proposed in this case. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Guida.
Thank you. Daniel, was the guest house once a garage?
I believe it was based on the morphology. I don't recall exactly what details are in the HCPI.
Okay, it's shaped like one. It appears that there's a driveway that runs right
Yes.
up to the front of it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, do you have access to the HICP report?
The HCPI is a 1985. Oh, there's the new one. Yes, I can. You want me to bring it up?
Oh, well, can you read the conclusion?
Let me see if this is it. Let's see. Sorry for the scrolling. The recommendation is to designate the house, casita, pergola, portal, carport, and the older section of the privacy wall contributing structures.
Okay. Thank you. And that was what year?
The HCPI,
Yes,
it's new, just been done.
thank you very much. Board members, any other questions for Daniel at this time? It appears not.
Just to
Or
follow
did
up, if I might, Chair.
Member Benvenu.
Sorry, thank you.
No, no problem.
Provided that we do designate the wall as contributing, does that require a primary facade, or does it make sense to have a primary facade designation as well, or is it a given that that's the primary facade?
Excuse me, Daniel, Madam Chair, Member Bienvenu, generally we don't designate primary facades for walls.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. Thank you. We will go to the applicant now, and the applicant is Richard Martinez. And I don't know if anyone else, any owners want to speak, so if you can swear them all in, please.
Yes, ma'am. Is he on yet?
I'm not seeing him on.
Oh, I don't see him. I don't see his name,
No, he's
and.
I don't see him.
I just sent him an email to the link because I noticed he wasn't on just a couple minutes ago. Daniel, is there a way you can make contact with him?
I can try and call him.
Okay, we'll take a minute to do that.
There's an email here that he's having internet troubles. He's going to try and call in. Let me try and call him.
Any luck, Daniel?
Just giving him a call. So far, I only have an answering machine. But we sent him an email. His one of his assistants had sent an email only 3 minutes ago. So I guess he's working on it actively.
I don't know if we should move on to the next case or wait another while.
Can we just put it one back or something?
We probably, let me see, I'll give him another minute. If not, we're gonna have to make a motion to move the case one back from the next case. I hate to do that because we have everything fresh in our minds in reference to this particular case, but we're probably gonna have to do that. Yeah, so we're gonna have, I will entertain a motion to move case 2022-004848, 4878, located at 342 Plaza Valentine, to the case to become case number after the second case.
So
That's
moved.
moved.
Is there a
Cass
second?
seconds. Yes, Cass seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Who made the motion?
Guido,
Read it.
Rita, thank you. Okay, member Bienvenue,
Yes.
member Guida,
yes.
vice chair Katz,
Yes.
member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We will move on to case located at 620 West San Francisco Street. This is Daniel's case. Daniel, will you give us your report, please?
Just a moment, just moving files around on the virtual space. So 620 San Francisco is also a primary, it's a status and primary facade case. There are two structures, one behind the other, constructed around the same time. Their footprint is essentially that of when it was constructed. They were constructed. This is the street view. I would like to ask the applicant if he can fill us in on the history of the wall, because I don't have any more data on it. This is the front facade with its symmetrical overall design, steel casement windows, and centered door. This is the west facade, which is recommended as primary due to its symmetry of form and windows. The east facade has less symmetry, still has the original windows. I'm not recommending primary facade for this. And this is another view of that same facade, I think. The rear is not recommended as primary. This is the rear structure. You can see that it's in a simplified Spanish Pueblo revival style. The windows are all non-historic windows. The form is approximately its original form, although it may have had some adding on just to making wider. That's not so much visible here as in this view. The right portion may have been the original with an addition on the front. There's also a yard wall that extends from the front of the lot to the back and incorporates the house in the rear. The recommendation is that this rear structure be designated non-contributing, the front contributing, and the wall contributing. Those are my slides. I stand for questions.
Board members, any questions for Daniel at this time? Okay, I don't think so. So Daniel, excuse me, clarification. Is the house already contributing and we are just designating primary facades?
No, that's designated, it's non-contributing and you are
Oh,
designating
okay,
a
so it's
status.
not contributing, okay. I will take it to the applicant, and who is the applicant?
Mr. Benvenu has a question.
Oh, Member Benvenue, I see you have your hand up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Daniel. So just further on that wall in the front with the archway, I think that's what you were just mentioning. You don't have
Yes.
the date on, but if I'm looking at the inventory, it's at page 4 of the packet that was stated 1985. And I can't see that very well in my packet, but it does appear to indicate that perhaps that front wall, or at least the arch, wasn't there. I'm wondering what your assessment is.
I'm just going to open the packet so that we can all look together. So this is the photograph from 1985. It shows a wall. It doesn't appear to show the wood slats. It's hard to say. It looks like there is an archway here.
So it's just black for me. I just can't make that out, but you can see that from where you are.
I think what you can see is these rectangles, but they're kind of shaded with a bit of a curve. I don't know, maybe not. Here you can see the posts of the portal.
Right.
Why don't we compare it to the, photo of the house? It's hard to say. It's definitely definitely there was a wall there.
Right.
But
And Daniel,
have
that
I
was
would
from
say-
oh, excuse me.
yeah, sorry. I think because you can see the posts extending basically down to the height of the corner, it would appear that the wall was raised
Right.
and that the archway is new.
We don't have a
It's very
picture
hard-
from that same, a current photo from that same angle.
not a current photo.
Okay. But the portal looks very visible in this photograph, which I don't think it is today.
Yes, I think that the archway would cover up more of it.
So that indicates to me that it was not in place as of 1980, whatever.
Not the
that is.
archway, but the low wall.
The low wall is, yes, of course. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions, board members, at this time? It appears not. Let's take it to the public, and we have Will McDonald
The applicant.
is the applicant, and anyone else that needs to get sworn in, would you do that, Melissa?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Will McDonald, 488 Arroyo Tenorio, Santa Fe.
Thank you.
Good evening, Will.
Good evening, Chair
what do you-
Rios and board.
Yes, what do you have to tell us about this project other than what Daniel just told us?
Well, and I'll get to the question of the front wall here. But the owner came to me wanting, with a desire to replace the windows on the front house. And he says, what do we need to do that? And so we're in the first step there of doing our status review. And so that's the only changes that we're proposing. And
No, we can't really talk about changes, Will, as you know. when
No,
we're doing a
I
status
understand that,
review.
but that's where how we
And
come here.
I understand that
So-
you're indicating that's why you're here before the board.
Yes,
Do you agree with the assessment of staff that the north and the west should be primary?
well, I guess, do I agree with the staff that this building should be elevated to contributing? And, yes, it is historic. It has, that's not a question. I don't have a strong opinion. I don't feel like there's a lot of character in that facade we're looking at on the west there. And the front, I believe the small portal was added. It looks like it was added probably in the 80s or something. It's a pin tile building, we believe, and it's with maybe two by exposed headers over the windows. It's something of an interesting house. How much we want to preserve this is up to you.
Thank you for your comments, Will.
But I would like to address the question of the wall on the front. And
Please do.
if I could share my screen, which I cannot do until I think I should be able to do that now. So this is just from the 66 aerial, showing that the buildings existed pretty much as they are back in 66. But let's just move down to this picture. If you look at the 1985 black and white, mostly black image here, you'll see that this part of the wall is quite a bit lower. And I think that the corner of the wall was here. I think that this part was not there in 85. And consequently, the arch wouldn't be either. I don't have that image again. I mean, Daniel, you could show it again because it's pretty much the same angle. But you'll see that this wall is higher in comparison to the windows here, and it appears to end right here.
You want me to show that again?
Why don't you? I'll stop sharing. See how it's considerably lower compared to the windows there?
It actually appears that this space here is the space between the end of the wall and the sidewalk.
That's
So that
how I
actually
see it
the
as
wall
well.
has been the wall was extended another 4 feet or so.
Yes. So it was raised and extended that way. And in that extension is where you have that coyote.
Coyote
fence
fencing
in that
is in this area here then.
Yeah. So that part isn't historic. I agree with Daniel. When we were there, we were looking at the rock wall along the west. Daniel, if you could give this back to me, so there's that view, and this one shows how it goes all the way down the property, all the way back here. And I think that is worthy of preserving. It's rustic. it's like the neighborhood here. And but I think there's character there. And so I think it's worthy of being considered contributing.
Anything else, Will?
No, I don't have anything else. Thanks.
Okay, let's see if any board members have something to comment on or to ask you. I don't see anyone that has his or her hand up. Wait, I do. Member Larson.
Yeah, thank you, Will, for providing that photo so we can see a really accurate comparison with the Hickey report. I think that's really helpful. I think my impression overall is, the house has a pretty high degree of integrity. I think, though, that the front yard wall sort of detracts from that, as well as the portal, which we're not quite sure of the age. Although I would note that the 1984 Hickey report talks about how the front portal would have had aluminum supports, which, maybe it was added a little bit earlier in the 60s, and now, maybe it has been replaced with wood to be more rustic looking. So I think we should consider that, the portal could have been there earlier. Aluminum would have been more characteristic of, the modern period. But we've maintained the form, but changed the materials. So I think that, would kind of affect the structure. And then could we also see Daniel, do you have a photo of the front door that we can see? I think it's on page, or there's no page number, but
I can show you.
Is on the
I
west
believe.
or the north facade.
This one.
Yes. Yeah. So I think the Hickey report talks about the door having, it has, sorry, the writing is quite small, but it says that the board or the door is a solid wood door. So it's possible that that could be the original door. And, also pointing out the Hickey report talks about the exposed lintels. So I don't know that they would have been stuccoed over in that trapezoidal sort of shape, but I think that's kind of an interesting character feature that we could think about. That I'd be interested to, hear what my fellow board members think about, the integrity and sort of the status of this house.
Thank you, Member Larson. Member Guida.
Thank you. Hi, Will.
Hi.
Question: Do you understand the hipped roof to be original to the house?
Hipped.
The roof.
The roof, I believe, is original. It's a flat roof with an overhang.
I see.
Is what it. Yeah.
I see.
But looking at that old 66 aerial, it seems to be what was there originally.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, it appears no other members have questions at this time, so I will take it to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? We have Stephanie Beninata, so she needs to get sworn in, please.
Hello.
Hey, hi there. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Stephanie Beninata, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I just want to say that my hand was up for public comment. I got it up just as you were saying. I don't see anybody with their hand up. I got it up in your last two words. I guess you didn't really look again at the screen. And so I didn't get to make public comment. And I just want to make that noted. Maybe you could give people a couple of seconds because it isn't always instant connection.
Now I'm looking very carefully and I did not see any hands up.
Okay.
But
anyway,
if you can,
particular,
Stephanie, if you can keep your comments to this particular
Yeah.
application right now, and then I can call on you later.
okay, thank you. I would appreciate that. So I agree with staff about the two primary facades. And I really appreciate that Will is showing that wall and recommending making that contributing. And I really think it adds greatly to that facade when you see both the wall and that, I guess it's west facade together. And whether the portal, I mean, it sounds like the portal was there, and yes, materials may have changed, but we allow historic buildings to be renovated, right? So, or you could accept it, which you have done before, but I too find this to be a primary facade, and the lentils, the exposed lentils with that sort of trapezoid shape. I've seen that a few places, but not that much, and it is really a unique feature, and I think it's worthy of preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see anyone else's hand up from the public. So I will take it back to the board and I will entertain a motion. I see that 2 people have their hands up. I don't know if that's for a motion, or I see 3 people. Maybe they want to make comments. Member Benvenue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to make a motion.
Okay, hang on. I think
will.
Daniel has his hand up as well. Daniel, did you have something further?
Yeah, just one comment on the portal, as Ms. Larson pointed out, the portal in the 1985 Higbee did have aluminum posts. So you,
Oh, you're breaking up, Daniel.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Flynn Larson pointed out that in the Higbee, it says that the posts were aluminum on the portal. So the portal should not be considered to be historic material, at least that portion.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, Member Larson, and thanks for your comments, Daniel. Member Benvenue, I'll take it back to you.
Well, I was going to make a motion, but I think you said that there may be someone else with a comment.
No, I think Member
No?
Katz had his hand up, and I think it was for a motion. And you're the
Okay.
only one with a hand up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will go ahead then and make a motion in case number 2022-004867 HDRB 620 West San Francisco Street. I move that, consistent with staff's recommendations, that the historic status of the north structure be designated contributing, with the north and west facades as primary, excluding the non-historic portal. That the historic status of the south structure, not facade, as I think incorrectly noted in the report, should be maintained as non-contributing, and that the rock wall on the western boundary of the property be designated contributing.
Thank you.
That's with second.
And Katz seconded, so may we have a roll call vote?
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
No,
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. Let's see if
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez, if I see him.
Haven't heard anything from him.
Let me just say, thank you for giving Mr. Martinez a chance here to be heard tonight, because we wait a long time for these, and with the technical difficulties, it's
Oh, yeah, I know.
bad thing to miss. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. We've all had technical difficulties, including myself and everyone else, I think, at one time or other, whether they're small, medium, or large. Let's see. I don't see Mr. Martinez on yet.
I haven't received any kind of communication from him yet.
Madam Chair, I would move to table this case until Mr. Martinez is able to join us,
Yes.
until the end of the case, before which he has joined us.
Thank you.
Larson
Do I
seconds.
hear a second? Larson seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Yes.
Member Guida.
yes,
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. We will now go to Facades is located at 76 East San Francisco. And this is Angela's case. Angela, may we hear your case, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Everyone can hear me and see my
Yes,
screen?
ma'am.
Well, not yet, probably. I need to share it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So 76 East San Francisco Street is a commercial building. It was constructed in 1883 and later remodeled in 1957 when the portals were added to the commercial block, which fronts the plaza on the north side. This is on the rear of the building, and the building is located in the downtown and east side historic district. It is designated non-contributing. However, in a 2018 board case, the front north elevation was designated contributing, just that front elevation. The proposal is to demolish. So this is the rear of that building, and this is the boiler room. And the proposal is to demolish this boiler room. That's the sum total of the proposal. So the applicant proposes to demolish it and the equipment on the rear south elevation. This is the site plan. This is the existing where the boiler room exists, and this is where it won't exist if it's demolished. It's believed to have been built when the building was constructed in 1983. It's an old steam boiler that was used for the original heating system and is no longer active. The applicant has provided a letter from the City of Santa Fe building inspector and proposes no other changes. And the criteria for the demolition are in your staff report. Staff believes that the removal of the structure does not diminish the contributing north elevation of this non-contributing structure and finds that the demolition criteria have been met per 14-3.12, demolition of historic or landmark structure, and I recommend approval. And that concludes.
Thank you very much, Angela, and thank you for your presentation. This is very interesting. I had never seen this. You know, I had never gone to that area there in the back. And I find it very interesting, especially that huge pipe. And if this boiler system is from 1883, that means this is like 139 years old. Is that from that age? Do you happen to know that?
It's part of it's not mentioned, excuse me, in the historic survey, so we don't know the exact date. The building was constructed in 1883.
Yeah, okay. Any questions, clarification questions for Angela, board members? We have member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I was just slightly confused, Angela, about the status of the property as you described it. It sounded like you were describing the plaza facade as the only contributing part of the building, but isn't it more accurate to say that the entire building is contributing, but the plaza side is the primary facade?
Thank you for the question, member Bienvenue. This one is one of those where the building was considered non-contributing based on all of its alterations. And that they went back in 2018 and designated the front, the facing plaza facade as contributing minus some of the more recent alterations. So they actually designated the facade and not the entire building contributing.
Okay. Okay, but I'll accept that, but that's a different phrasing than in the report that says that at the January 23, 2018 hearing, the board designated the building as contributing and designated the north elevation as primary.
I apologize. That's an error in my staff report. It should be not contributing, as well as on my, on the status on the memo front. It should say non-contributing.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
Thank you. So the building is contributing with the north facade as primary.
No,
The building is non-contributing, but
It
it's
is not contributing.
not contributing, but they designated the north elevation facing the plaza contributing.
Oh,
Okay.
I
I guess it's just having seen the property today, it's, looking at this picture, of course, it's an interesting view. I think actually an incredibly interesting view of downtown Santa Fe, and a lot can be learned from just examining what's in that photograph. But the building itself, I guess I'm somewhat troubled. It's, on the one hand, it seemed like an easy decision, but the fact that this building is still there, and it looks like it's the same building that was there in 1883, and I'm talking about the boiler room itself now, it's just clear to me that at least one of the exceptions, not the exceptions, but one of the considerations that we're supposed to take into account, namely whether the structure is of historical importance, that one seems to be unquestionably, yes, it is of historical importance. And that's a historical boiler room from 1883, right off the plaza of a very significant, era of building in Santa Fe. Reminds me a little bit of the stone powder house, I think it's called, on Galisteo, from the same era. Even though this is much more industrial in purpose. So I guess I'm just not as quick to think that this could just be taken away without any repercussions. And I just feel that maybe before it's taken away, which may be the actual end result that's appropriate, it'd be nice to know whether there was some architectural historian that could give us some feedback about the significance of that structure before it's done away with.
Thank you, Member.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Member Katz?
Yes, I was wondering, because I don't remember it being done that way. On what does Angela base her statement that only the front of that the building is not contributing, but it has a primary facade?
The basis is the 2018 case and another appeal document that talk about that status designation and facades.
So you were looking at the minutes of that case?
Yes.
And very, very interesting. I can't imagine that we would have done it that way. I would be curious to see the minutes.
I find it I do too. I find it unusual that you would say a building is not contributing, but it has a primary facade.
It's not allowed under our code.
Well, Chair Rios and Member Katz, actually one of my cases that was done, and you'll see it next month it's a different case, but what was done was the house was designated non-contributing, but the one facade preserved its historic features and character, and the board designated that facade contributing. This one sounds like that was the same treatment was given to this one.
Member Katz, did you have anything further?
I'm discomforted by this, and I would almost like to be able to look at the evidence and read those minutes and see if that corresponds with what my memory is on this. And to do that, I think we would need to postpone, and I wouldn't do that unless, well, obviously I couldn't do it unless people agreed, but I don't see this as the kind of remodeling or action that is time sensitive in any way. And I think that postponing it to clarify that aspect of it, and to also clarify, maybe get more information that Member Bienvenu was seeking, might not be a bad thing. I'd be curious to hear how other members feel about that.
Thank you for your comments, Member Katz. Member Larson?
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a little bit of insight to sort of the approach of analyzing and sort of determining significance of, historic building systems. Like, just really briefly, I think, there's preservation brief number 24 by Sharon Park and the National Park Service Technical Preservation Services Bulletin that talks about historic boilers and sort of how to approach the the determining the significance and sort of the function, both past and present, of boilers, and sort of where they lie in determining if they are essential to the historic building that they are assembled with. So her main recommendations are to provide a condition assessment looking at the potential threats to the building. I think in the current evidence that we have, they talk about the potential infiltration of water, and that it's very difficult to access the boiler itself to sort of do an examination. I think following the recommendations and following the outline that she provides, I think, it would be really helpful to have photographic evidence of this. These things are, difficult because, yes, it's an example of sort of the industrial era in Santa Fe and sort of, earlier, building technology in Santa Fe. But if this is, significant to the actual streetscape, and if it's significant to the history of the plaza, I'm not sure. Especially if something like this is providing negative impacts to a potentially what we understand to be a contributing building, I think that's a huge threat, and we should weigh sort of the concerns of something that is not being used by the occupants, and perhaps not, overall contributing to the greater significance of Santa Fe history. So, I think there should be a more thorough investigation. But I think for me, my overall impression is this is, negatively impacting this building. And I do think it is time sensitive in a way where we would be concerned about, if this is creating, different threats physically to the structure. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Larson. Member Guida.
Thank you, Chair Rios. I am in agreement with Member Katz over the confusion about having a primary facade on a possibly non-contributing building. I don't understand how that happens or is possible. That said, I'm appreciative of Member Larson's comments about how these things can be considered, how infrastructure can be considered to be historic. But I really do want to remind the board in reviewing these status cases that it's really important for us to distinguish between something that is historic and contributing and something that is merely old. I have no comprehension how a boiler room in the back alley of this building, regardless of the status of the building, and regardless of how much I actually like this photograph and seeing this stuff in the city of Santa Fe, I have very little understanding how this feature at all contributes to the historic district. as our code states, or in any kind of historic sense of fossil fuel use, of expression of industrial equipment, of any of those things. This is virtually invisible and probably has been virtually invisible for 130 some odd years. So the question to me of whether the building is contributing or not is moot. I would be willing to make a decision about demolishing this, and I agree with Member Larson's comments about its negative impact currently.
Thank you. Member Katz.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move to postpone this case to a date certain and have the board provided with the minutes of that meeting in which the front of the building was deemed to be contributing or primary, I'm not quite clear what, the findings and conclusions from that, and the documentation and the information from the appeal of that decision that might help us understand. It may be that we end up, right where Anthony was, and deciding maybe that whatever we discover on the contributing nature of the building, that this doesn't add to it. But I think it would be remiss of us to not have much more complete information.
Is there a second to this motion to postpone this?
Bienvenue seconds.
Member Benvenue seconded the motion. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes, and could I make a friendly amendment
Yes.
to the motion? I would just request more photographic evidence of the current conditions, if possible.
Photographic of what? I'm sorry, Member Larson, repeat.
Of the conditions, she said.
Yes, I would like photographic evidence of the current conditions.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call vote, please. Oh, you already did it.
We already
Thank
did
you.
it. Yep.
And you already accepted the friendly amendment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And applicant, if you're listening to me, we'll see you next time, or when it's appropriate for you to come before the board again. Next case is located
Okay,
at,
I'm sorry, Chair Rios. If we're postponing under the Open Meetings Act, I think we have to postpone to a specific date.
to a date certain.
Yes, that's the way I read the Open Records, the Open Meetings Act.
I would propose postponing it to the second meeting in April.
Okay, and what is the date?
April 26th.
April 26th, postponed to April 26th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Attorney Rubali.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to case 701 East Alameda. This is Daniel's case. And if Richard Martinez comes on, you let me know, and then we'll hear his case, which was the first case, which was the second case on the agenda. But okay, 701 East Alameda, number 3. This is your case, Daniel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here we are, 701 East Alameda, Apartment 3. This is a case that the board heard and denied last year. It involves these non-contributing structures. At the rear, a portal was constructed and red tagged, and then the applicant owner came before the board and was denied. Here's a photo. Here's another photo. And This is the front of the structure. The applicant is drawing attention to these details of the white painted wood beams and stained surfaces underneath here. The intention is to bring the proposed portal into line with the design features of the rest of the building as well as the district. There is some public visibility from Palace Avenue. It's shown in this photograph. The circled element is the portal in question. And the applicant has looked to some design precedents in the district. Here is a site view. This is the proposed portal at the rear of the structure, viewed with a little bit of visibility, as we said, from Palace, otherwise no visibility from East Alameda Street. The plan is to make some stylistic changes to the structure while maintaining its basic form. Here we have views of the existing and the proposed. They're a little difficult to read, but the main difference that you see is the adding of articulations, capitals, and a beam across the top to give it more differentiation and weight. Here are the three main elements that are being changed. There were these diagonal brackets in the original design. Those are now would be removed. A beam would be put across the top. And these elements, so it's shown in the next slide. Here you see the beam, the capital, and the thickening on the bottom. The applicant, I believe, has a presentation also to share. At this point, I stand for questions.
Any questions, board members, for Daniel at this time? It appears not. Let's take it to the applicant. And who is the applicant?
Jutan.
Jutan, and would you swear him in, Melissa?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ju Tan, and my address is 1219 Cerro Gordo Road. Do you need me to start my video?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Thank you. Good evening, board, and thank you, Daniel, for the introduction. Okay. So the first few slides are relatively redundant, as they are replicas of basically slides that Daniel has already shown. However, what Daniel and I, after we submitted our first proposal, I had a couple of exchanges with Daniel and actually submitted a revised proposal, and I'd like to present them. Again, just a little bit of background, this is the property, this is the portal, Palace Avenue, and yeah, it was deemed today that we can see the top of the portal from Palace Avenue here. So we saw this earlier. So this is the view from the front. And basically my proposal, attempts to modify the existing structure so that it's more stylistically in line with the kind of the more contemporary territorial style of the condominium, with wood trim, painted wood trims, etc. So this is the existing portal. I'm sorry for scrolling back and forth. This beam right here is a 4x6 lintel that is laid flat. These two diagonal brackets are 4x6 brackets, and the two posts are 6x6 posts, and they have foundations going 18 to 24 inches into the ground. The rafters holding up the roof are 4x4s. This is another view here, view from the inside. Okay. So what, and then we saw this, view of the portal, and this door leads to Unit 3. So the undersides are kind of unpainted or stained, wood, and then just the outside and exposed structure is painted white. Again, we looked at some of these, kind of drawing a little bit from what we see in the city. So what we'd like to do here is actually make two possible proposals. This first proposal is made in an attempt to preserve the existing structure for a couple of reasons. One, the owner did have the city inspector come over to do a special inspection of the structure, and the structure was deemed. Well, let me back up a little bit. In reviewing the hearing from last year, there were a few points that were made by the board about the portal leading to its denial. One is that the portal has structure against the back wall, which is relatively atypical of any portals built. Another one is the introduction of diagonal members. Let's look at the existing diagonal members, which also are, atypical. And also it was questioned as to whether these diagonals were code violations. Then another comment was that the structure of the portal appeared too insubstantial and didn't seem to be stable. The next one was that, and a general comment was that the design was generally unacceptable and would not be approved anyway if it was presented, prior to it being built. Now, the owner, I think from the last presentation, is regretful that he overlooked the fact that he had to go through historic board, and so is trying to kind of rectify the situation. So in light of those comments and the situation, what I'm attempting to do here is to kind of mediate between what I felt the board needed to see, as a structure that was attractive to enough and appealing enough to be in the historic district, as well as trying to minimize the amount of modifications for the owner. And so this proposal attempts to maintain the existing structure, including the diagonals. However, as Daniel pointed out, introducing wood elements that will be painted white to improve the proportions of the structure, as well as create a stylistic, kind of look and feel to the portal. So this is the first option proposal, and this is our preferred option. The diagonal members, what I found interesting in kind of reviewing the code, there is a code regulation indicating that any element protruding into any path of travel needs to be at least 80 inches or 6 foot 8 inches above the walking surface. It's arguable that, a lot of times that code applies to, clear paths of travel like corridors and things like that, corridors, egress paths, etc. It's not clear as to whether, it's not clear to me at least, whether this is a code violation. Well, so hence I felt like it was worth pursuing, keeping these diagonal braces in and improving the proportions and style of the portal. What I have here in just this next slide, it basically is, and I don't need to read the whole thing, it's a letter from Bobby Padilla, who is the building official. And this is a letter he wrote to the owner, specifically saying that the construction of the new porch is acceptable to apply for a building permit and would meet current building code requirements. So that was that. And in kind of just response to the feel that the structure was not substantial, the owner also did have a special inspection by a structural engineer, and basically they approved, saying that everything is just fine, structurally. And so the portal as built is stable. However, my feeling when I first visited the structure was similar to the boards, and I did feel like it did look thin, especially for a historic district. And so I did feel like it needed improvement in terms of the proportions of the portal. Hence, this is our preferred option. Now, if so this is, our preferred option. You can kind of just review the existing with the diagonals. There's a proposed keeping the diagonals. Now, but I felt like I also wanted to present another option, which is essentially what Daniel showed us, which is removing the diagonals. However, removing the diagonals would compromise the existing structure, which has already been been approved by, and certified safe by a structural engineer, and replace it with a new 6x10 wood beam going across and all the way back to the existing wall, but keeping all the other posts in place with the wood trim and painted white. So those are the two options that, that we are proposing. And with this first one, keeping the existing structure intact and just changing how it looks, on the outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tan. Let me see if board members have any questions for you. Member Guida.
Thank you, Chair Rios. Mr. Tan, several questions. What is the roofing material?
It is a modified bitumen roof.
And that is proposed to stay?
Yeah, it is proposed to stay.
Okay, and the 3 columns that are against the house, can you talk about those?
Yeah, so the column that you see that I've kept brown here, I've, again, the columns that are against the wall, again, I do recognize they are atypical of, almost all portals that we see. However, it is not, I'm just hoping that we will be allowed to keep them and not highlight this one in the middle at least, paint the rest so that it looks like this portal was built separately with its own structure, albeit, against the wall, but that this portal is held by these 4 posts. And this column, even though we deem that the top of the roof is visible from Palace, that I'm kind of hoping that the board can accept that this post, remains. This is a relatively long span, and so changing the structure, essentially we almost have to tear the existing portal down. So rather than to go through those extremes at this point, we felt like we wanted to go this route and see if we can create something that was acceptable to the board.
Which of the two options do you feel meets the district standards better?
Regardless, if I was disregarding the amount of work required to modify the structure, you know, where we're trying to impact costs, etc., I would do this.
Okay. Is there a way to make I agree. And is there a way to make the middle column against the back wall disappear besides painting it the stucco color?
Well, I suppose we could encase it and stucco over it, you know, and kind of blend it to the wall. I suppose that's one possibility.
Is it not possible to ledger the beam that's across the back of or that's against the house to the house?
Yeah, let's take a look at the existing. So this beam here, as you can see, let me zoom in.
Can that be replaced like you're upsizing the beam on the front edge of the portal?
Yeah, but this, I believe, is going to be in excess of 20 feet. So we could replace this beam, remove this column, but I think this beam will probably need to be like a glue lamp, because I think it needs to span in excess of 18 to 20 feet, maybe.
Right. Or else you could put a ledger against the house.
We could put a ledger against the house. However, the ledger, as you can see, there's like a 3-inch gap between the structure and the wall.
Okay.
So unfortunate, yeah. I mean, the structure really would have to get out there, you know.
Thank you. So just one comment. I think you've done in the option that we have in our packet, which is really the only one that I'm going to consider because it's the only one in the packet. I agree that is the one that comes closest to fixing the non-conformance of this structure with the design standards of the district. And it does so particularly by getting rid of the diagonals. And it does so by upsizing the beam across the front of the portal. I think you've done an admirable job in this option of fixing, you know, something that was very far out of compliance. I don't agree that the diagonal brackets, regardless of whether an enforcement official has decided that they're okay, would be even remotely in line with the district standards. I would like to see that middle column disappear in the back. If it's possible to put a new beam across the front, it's possible to also either ledger the back of the portal, or to put a bracket where the beam is located, or to replace the beam. Those seem to be options. I don't love the splayed corner that was part of the original structure, but you know, from this view and from what we would see from the street, I don't think it would be objectionable.
Thank you, Member Guida. It appears no one else has comments from the board at this time. I'm going to take it to public comment. Yes. Stephanie Banato has something to say, and she's been sworn in. Yes, Stephanie.
Stephanie Banato. I think that they have tried to, you know, come to.
Stephanie, excuse me. Can you speak up?
Sure.
Speak a little louder.
Yeah, I said I think that they have, in fact, tried to come in to compliance. I do like that sort of slanted edge on the one end of the portal. And I actually appreciate that it's not ledgered into the building, because the idea, I think, was that the building and the portal were going to be separate. And so by having that gap, although it's kind of awkward, I think, it's actually not attached to the building. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no one else from the public wanting to comment, so I will take it back to the board. Member Katz.
Yes, Madam Chair, I agree with Anthony, and I would hope that in the motion that he will make, that he just tells them they need to get rid of that back middle post on the brown post in this graphic, and figure out a way of doing it without that post. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Yes, please.
So in case 2022-004-868 HDRB 701 East Alameda, Apartment 3, I move that the board approve this design option that's included in our packet, the one without diagonals, and that the applicant return to staff once they have figured out a way to remove the middle column, either by installing a new beam or ledgering it to the house.
Is
I
there a
would second
second?
that motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
I would approve as submitted, so I vote no.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And thank you, applicant. Next case is located at 661C Garcia Street, and this is Angela's case. Angela, would you give us your report, please? And Angela, you are muted.
So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But what we are seeing, I don't know if you want us to see this. We're not seeing anything related to the case.
You're sharing your desktop and not the presentation.
How about now?
Yes,
Yay.
ma'am.
Okay. Thanks for your patience. So this house is at 661 Garcia Street C. It's non-contributing. And the applicant has come to the board to gain or seek approval for a proposal that was approved in 2017. It is to add onto, this is actually the existing site plan and the proposed. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is the addition down here. So onto this northwest corner is where the addition is supposed to go. The addition is about, it's 490 square feet. Excuse me, 444 square foot addition. And it'll be, I think 15 feet is its height, which is 4 inches lower than the existing height of the house. The finishes will match the existing buckskin cementitious. It'll have the same territorial revival style details with the windows with the white trim pediments, and all the exposed woodwork will be white, and the windows will be true divided light wood. And the other part of this proposal is to repair some of the rotting wood at the house. I think that concludes my report. I recommend approval of the project as it meets the general design standards for all historic districts, section 14-5.2D, and the downtown and east side design standards 14-5.2E.
Thank you, Angela. Board members, any questions for Angela at this point?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Angela, if we've already approved this, why is this coming to the board again?
Anthony, it's coming to the board because its approval expired.
I see.
Approvals over 3 years. You can gain 1-year extensions within that time period, and then you have to go back.
Thank you for explaining.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
if I remember reading the report, it was approved first in 2014, and then it expired, and then it was approved in 2017, expired, and I believe, and the Angela or the applicant can clarify this, it's the exact same approval that was handed to the applicant in 2014 and 2017, the same. They are coming forward with the same plan.
That is correct.
Member Katz.
I'm puzzled looking at the floor plan, how one's going to get into that bedroom. There seems to be no door into it from either another room or outside. Am I missing something?
Maybe the applicant can explain.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure that
Member
the applicant can help you with
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Member Katz.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up, so we will swear in Mr. Purvis.
Okay. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I see Chris, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. I'll swear you in again. Do you swear?
I heard you. I'll say
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Purvis, 518 Old Santa Fe Trail.
Chris, we can't hear you.
Not at all?
Yeah, I
Now,
hear him.
yes. Yes, thank you. Now we can.
I'll try and speak louder. I don't know about the 2014 approval, but 2017, we were approved and actually went and got the building permit. And then the owner got distracted. So I'm sorry to take more of the board's time. And in answer to Vice Chair Katz's question, there's a doorway. We're going to use the existing doorway that you can see on the existing plan and go right through there. Doesn't show well, but it basically is right across from the bathroom door, the new bathroom door.
I see. Thank you.
Board members, any further questions? None. I'll take it to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular case? I don't see anyone from the public with a hand raised. I will take it back to the board and entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Yes, please.
2022-004-862 HDRB 661 Garcia Street C. I move that the board approve the project as submitted.
Is there a
Katz would
second? I'm sorry, who seconded?
Katz.
Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Next case is located at 2 Camino Pequeno, and it's Angela's case. Give us your report, Angela, please.
Thank you, Chair. And it's the same slideshow that's up on the screen and you can all see it.
No, we're still at 661 Garcia.
Okay, now.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Number 2 Camino Pequeno is about a 3,100 square foot residence. It was constructed in the early 60s, described as a blend of mid-century ranch and prairie revival styles. And when we visited it today, there's obviously some Eastern influence there as well. It's characterized by its horizontal lines, and it has low massing with exposed whitewashed adobe, slightly pitched shed roof with projecting eaves, stained wooden elements, and wood windows with a horizontal rectangular light pattern. Its tallest existing height is 11 feet, 11 inches. The resident was designated non-contributing to the Downtown and East Side Historic District in a 1998 Ford case, and has undergone remodeling in the late 1990s and again in 2015. This is the existing site plan. And the applicant will be present and provide his slides as well. And I will let him explain his proposal. And just allow for that by reading my recommendation. And that's that staff didn't find that all the exception criteria were met. And this is regarding windows and the dimensions of the window panes exceeding 30 inches, that 30-inch rule. Otherwise, the board may find that the applicant has met the criteria, but otherwise staff recommends approval of the application, believing it complies with the general design standards, section 14-5.2D, and the downtown and east side historic district standards, section 14-5.2E. And the app, I'm going to turn it to the applicant. Well, I guess that's the chair's job. That concludes my report, and the applicant will be providing a lot more detail.
Thank you. Angela, a couple of questions from me. Is this located in a public way or is this a private drive?
It's Chair Rios, it's actually both. It's a private road and it is accessed by the public all the way. It runs alongside the river and it is accessible by the public.
And this property is fenced, correct?
That is correct. We provide.
So would you
photographs.
describe the public visibility of the project, of the proposed project?
So you're looking at the front of the house from the road. It has this gray-green horizontal wood slat fencing above a low rock wall, and you can't see with this closed like this. You can't see in. The front of the house is actually. Let's go to another picture. Actually, this is what you see from the road, Chair Rios, and there's an opening in the wall to the east.
Thank you. Member Katz.
Yes, I appreciate that we'll get the applicant's description of what they want to do, but there are a couple of preliminary things which we asked for. One is the height calculation that allows them to go to the height that they have designed for. And I am puzzled as to that just because I walk that street and all but one of the houses are all one story. And so I'm curious how that height calculation got done. And also, well, maybe I'll ask the other question about the amount of windows, the percentage of windows and masonry on a facade later after we get there.
To respond to your first question, the maximum allowable height calculated for this property in a previous case was 15 feet 8 inches.
Have you reviewed the basis of that calculation?
After our meeting today, I looked at it again, and it's based off the applicable streetscape for this is the 300 feet radius circle and collects the properties within that. So I reviewed it and believe that that is the maximum allowable height in the streetscape.
Thank you, Angela.
Angela, what is the height of the existing building?
The height of the existing building at its highest is 11 feet 11 inches.
Okay, thank you. Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so I know what exceptions we're actually needing to be addressing in this case, so that I'm clear on what record is going to be made by the applicant. You mentioned exceptions with respect to the size of the panes. And I'm wondering, do we also, based on the design, it's just not clear to me, so I'm asking what your opinion is. Are exceptions not needed for the window coverage percentage on the facades?
Member Bienvenu, based on our site visit today, there was some question about that, and the applicant is aware and can respond to that. The exception requested in the case and in my staff report is about the dimension, in diagonal dimension of this pane is 32 inches. So those exceed the 30-inch rule,
right,
in that regard. And so,
do you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, the applicant is prepared to talk about the facade and the, coverage or the proportions.
But just from your perspective as staff, do you, based on the plans, do you believe an exception? Have you done the calculations, I assume? Do you believe an exception is required for the percentage of window coverage or the distance to the corner of the facade?
I think I need to hear from the applicant to make that decision based on the plans that I have, and the site plans don't show, and we saw that the facade ends here and it jogs. Excuse me, the return of the inside wall is 6 feet and not 4 feet, which would mean it's a separate facade, meaning this, okay, so up here.
Okay.
This elevation, or is it this one? It's this one.
Go to the plan, the existing.
And that's the roof plan, but this is the proposed floor plan.
Okay.
Let's look.
And
here's the existing floor plan. So this is the front of, this is that facade. And this here, as we saw today, appears to be 6 feet. And if so, then that creates 2 more facades, this one and this one.
okay. And what about the color of the, I think it's the carport that is intended to be white? Doesn't that require an exception as well?
Staff didn't determine that it required an exception based on the history of changes to this house and how that white color has been reapproved and reestablished as meeting the code because of the existing house and its architectural style, that it's in keeping with what is there. And in previous minutes, board members talked about that in relation to this house, that it's very different from, Santa Fe style, but that it is its own historic building with respect to its design and character.
Well, I see that, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, but it still strikes me that those would be the grounds for an exception that would still be required because the white is specifically prohibited for a new structure. That's the way I would interpret the code in that area.
So a new structure that has a different stucco color from the main building.
Right. I mean, we have to determine whether or not the stucco color on this structure that's being proposed meets the code, and it doesn't. So that would require, in my mind, an exception, which would be based on the fact that it's designed to harmonize with the existing residents. As I say, you may end up in the same place, but it seems to me you still need to satisfy the exception criteria.
Thank you, Member Bienvenu.
Could I just make only one
one
last comment I was going to make is that I also think that this is a non-conforming structure and that under our code, non-conforming structures are not supposed to be renovated or added on to except to bring them into conformance. unless the board finds that the building is of architectural or historic interest. So I think that that may be implicitly what's being contemplated in this case for the reasons why it's not being required to be brought into conformance. But I think that would need to be a finding of some sort on the board's part.
You're correct. That is the operating assumption. And based on the previous minutes from previous meetings, the board has decided that way, that it's unique in itself as this type of structure in this district, in this streetscape. And has, yeah. So.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Angela, this particular building you mentioned is historic, but it does not have a historic, it doesn't have a classification, correct? It is non-contributing?
It's non-contributing, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Member Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, Angela, thanks for your presentation. I just have a bit of a concern about the status of this building, mainly because I know the determination was made in the 1990s, and which would have made it under 50 at the time. So I'm just a little bit curious about what, if there's a need to review the status in, this year, since it is obviously over 50 at this point.
Member Flynn, I see your point, and I believe that it was designated non-contributing not only based on its age, but it had already been renovated and remodeled and altered. But of course, what you're referring to, and similar to the previous case, is a renewed look at it in terms of a survey. And I'm not advocating either way, but I see your point. I also think that it's been reestablished as non-contributing. And so if the board feels that it needs another look at that, at its at the history and how that determines its status, then you may do so.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my reasoning behind, bringing this up is that really is sort of the best practice, is to, sort of review structures once they reach a certain age, given the, the expanded body of research surrounding different styles and different time periods. And also finding that the structure has been, deemed as architecturally interesting by the board in the past. I think that, we sort of should follow the same approach that we would with any style that is typically conforming. So the district, just because this is, in a different style and possesses different elements than we're typically used to reviewing on the board, I really think this is something worth revisiting.
Thank you for your comments, Member Larson. Angela, when did you say this was last reviewed by the board, and how old is the building now?
It was last in 2015. It was reviewed.
And how old is the building now?
1960, so whatever.
Oh, okay, so
2022 is
okay.
It's at least 60 years.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Member Katz.
Yes, I think that Member Bienvenu and Member Larson brought up a really interesting point. That provision that says if you are renovating a non-conforming house, you have to make it conform to Santa Fe style. And I think this is a wonderful house. And I don't think any of us want them to change the style of it so it looks like a Santa Fe style house. But that can be avoided but it must be a historic, I forget the exact words that John used, historic interest. And by having it non-contributing and non-historic, rather, I think that makes it harder for us to do what they want. And so I would agree with both John and Flynn that we should send it back and have them do we should do a status review. And I think it deserves to have a contributing status because it is such a wonderful building and an interesting building. But I think that does require us to do status.
Thank you for your comments. Member Guida.
I guess I'm confused by this discussion of the need for a status review. If the board upheld the current status in 2015, I don't see why a few years later anything would necessarily change. I also, would agree with Member Katz that, of course, the intent would not be to make a non-conforming building conform. So that's not what we're after. And I also wouldn't really, we don't exactly have a place in our code for, we as a board may decide to designate this building as contributing, but that, goes beyond the wording of the code, right? This really doesn't contribute to the district style. It's an exception. So to me, this is just legal procedure. We're going to wind up back at the same place. The board has repeatedly upheld the status of this project. I think, like the case on San Francisco Street with the boiler room, I am more than willing to go ahead and review the case on its merits right now.
Thank you, Member Guida. Member Larson, did you have something further?
Yeah, and thanks, Member Guida, for the comments. I think that the reason I bring up the need for a review is just due to the growing body of knowledge surrounding this period. I think after 2015 and the past 7 years, we've really seen a large development of the relationship of historic preservation to the study of this time period of mid-century modern. And, I think, again, it's just, it warrants further research based on, the growth of resources and knowledge we have surrounding this period.
Thank you for your comments. Member Katz.
Yes, I would just like to apologize to Anthony for the legal attitude that both Member Bienvenu and I have. We're not disagreeing, I don't think, maybe where we'll end up, but we would like it to be legal. And I think just because, let's just forget that there are requirements to approve the renovation of a non-contributing or a non-conforming structure. Let's do it legal way, not just ignore the rules. I mean, they have the rules that allow us to do, I think, what we want to do, but we should follow those rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Guida?
I also see, from the case history here and knowing the property, like I don't see a house that's, essentially that may have been where the house started out, but the house has been repeatedly remodeled over the years. So while there may be some mid-century elements, or it may have been classified as a mid-century house in the staff report, those are just words. Again, what I'm seeing here is not a property that needs to be reviewed. I'm seeing a property that has been reviewed and re-reviewed and remodeled successively over the years and come before the board and been consistent in its status. Seems odd to me now that we would be questioning the status.
Thank you for your comments, Member Guida. Member Larson, you have something further?
Yeah, I just, again, I really think, you know, I wasn't on the board in 2015, but I was, you know, practicing in this field and, you know, seeing the sort of development of study of this style. And I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but for me personally, you know, my first impression, you know, seeing this house and reviewing the packet, I would really like to see, you know, evidence of the changes made. You know, I think, again, it really warrants a, you know, a deeper sort of look based on again, the developments in studying this period.
Thank you, Member Larson. Vice Chair Katz.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would at this point move to postpone to get a for a status review to get more information, that the kind of information that Member Larson was talking about.
Is there a second to the motion?
Larson seconds it.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
No.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
And again, I think you better do it to a date certain.
I would suggest a date in May because I don't know how long it will take them to get all that information.
Okay. May I ask some questions or comment in any way before this is?
That would be
completely-
helpful. Yes, please.
Mr. Strongwater
Okay.
is the owner and he is here and he would like to make a comment. Yes, Mr. Strongwater.
Madam Chair, I need to swear him in.
Oh, please do so.
Thank you. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Daniel Strongwater, 806 Dungas Bar.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Strongwater. What do you have to tell us?
Hello. I just wanted to take a chance to relay how deeply we've gone on this property and this project and researching the history of it. We began the process with staff in September of last year to get in front of you, and it's now March 22nd. We attempted to get on the February meetings and are here in March. So I first of all would ask to be put on the nearest possible date, if at all possible. I also have a very significant amount of information prepared to show you all. I have drawings that were approved in 2015, which I really very much obscure the home significantly more than it's obscured right now. I'd be more than happy to show those. They were completely approved and never constructed. Those plans that were approved violated a number of parts of the code through our research that we discovered. And anyway, there's some other issues with that. And then I also just have a significant amount of information that we prepared about our designs that I would love to take the board through tonight, if possible. I appreciate the discussion. The house has been in front of the board in the late 90s and actually twice in 2015 with at least half of the same board commenting in the record in the minutes. And so as a homeowner and a person in Santa Fe who's been working very hard, I don't know if you all recall, this is our third time in front of the board trying to sort of breathe life back into some of the historic homes in Santa Fe, and we're really trying to read the letter of the code and the letter of the law and respond to every possible thread of information available to us as public citizens. I do just have to comment that I feel a little bit like the rug's been pulled out from under me in this discussion so far, where none of the information that the board has been discussing was in any way available to me in this process from staff or in any way. So I guess I, in some ways, object to the lack of my ability to respond to those things. I do have a significant amount of information prepared to respond to the critiques I'm aware of. And I can speak to a number of things that were brought up, but I also appreciate procedurally, it's a little complicated now. I think there's been a motion made. So I'm just not clear as a homeowner, you know, it's not cheap to invest in a design, which we have significantly invested in design. It's taken us a very long time to do what we think is a respectful treatment of the house, to deal with the renovations that have been done prior to our acquisition of the home, which we think have some elements that conflict with the original home. And then secondly, just the timing of carrying this into another few months really scares me, and is actually going to be quite problematic for us on a number of levels that I believe you would consider hardship. So I'm not really sure where to go from here. I just implore you all to try and see how this might be, as a public citizen, trying to get through this process with and preparing for so many months leading up to it, and being found in this situation.
Mr. Strongwater, I appreciate your comments, and I thank you for your comments. The board did make a motion and to postpone the case, and it did pass. I would suggest to the maker of the motion that they, instead of having this heard further on into the year, to make it as soon as possible.
Absolutely, I agree.
That's number one, but let me see, Member Katz,
Can I ask a clarifying?
Hold on a minute.
Sure.
Do you have anything further, Member Katz, other than?
Yes, I would. I appreciate Mr. Strongwater's comments, and I would want to have it postponed until the next possible meeting. So it's as fast as possible for him. And he will be able to present the information. It sounds like he has a lot of that information and can get that to the staff.
Thank you, Member Katz. Do we have to take an additional vote on this since he changed the date?
We haven't made a date.
Well, you said this was the next.
When I made the
possible.
motion, I didn't make a date. And then you said, oh, you need to put a date. And I was suggesting as the date later in April. And then Mr. Strongwater gave us some wisdom as to why it should be.
So you're indicating as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
As
Yes.
soon as all the information is in.
Yes.
Member Guida, did you have something further?
Yes, Madam Chair. Point of order. We, as a board, have just made and voted on a decision to postpone this case for status review without public comment or without applicant comment. I object to that. I don't think that's right. The date of when this case is postponed to is immaterial. The board has made a motion here to conduct a status review on the house that may change the plans of the owner. It's very clear, Mr. Strongwater has explained that, based on the recommendations of staff back in the fall, he has proceeded to spend money, not only carrying the property, but also hiring a designer to do these documents that are meant to be reviewed tonight. I don't understand how postponing the case would in any way make that situation go away or make that better. I think that's an important concern, and I think that should have been addressed before the motion was made and voted on.
Thank you, Member Guida. In reference to public comment, I believe if, and Attorney Lubelit can tell me otherwise, I believe when we have postponement that public comment is not required. Is that correct?
I've got to do a little bit of, let me look up some rules here. If I have just a moment.
May I ask a clarifying question as the applicant?
Yeah, go right ahead. Mr. Strongwater is going to ask a question.
I guess I'm not clear what the process if a postponement happens, what even the process is. In the past, when I've participated, that when there's a status review, it's one meeting, and then a review of the design has to follow in a subsequent meeting. I believe that.
Madam Chair, I can answer that.
Right.
That is not required.
Right.
They can be on the same, but
Exactly.
all the exception, we would plan the case for the understood or assumed assumption, the assumed exceptions rather.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would have to postpone your case if we saw that there were exceptions based on the primary facades, if those were chosen.
Okay, and those would be we would have to pay for each potential assumed exception in this hypothetical facade designation.
Ideally, we would craft the case as concisely and accurately as we saw possible. But yes, you would, in order to avoid postponing the case further, if we're not sure if you might have an exception potentially, we would probably go ahead and list the exception. And then if the exception was taken off, we would go ahead and refund you that money.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, sir. Member Guida?
Sorry, I just had my hand up. Sorry.
Did you find the answer, Attorney Rubalid?
As I understand your question is, do you have to
Entertain public comment under
public?
postponement.
I have not found that.
Under Robert's rules, if somebody can look that up.
Okay, I have Robert's rules.
Let's see. But, well, I didn't do it under the other case that was postponed, and if my memory serves me correctly, I believe that we do not, Anthony, but I don't want to do anything that is incorrect.
My concern, Madam Chair, is that this is an issue of fairness. The public has a right to be able to trust the determination of the Historic Division staff and then proceed to spend money crafting a case to bring before the board. If we change the goalposts without the input of the applicant or the public in this way, this is, we are putting an undue burden on applicants here.
Let me see if I can get.
Okay, I'm looking at the question of postponing to a specific date. When consideration of a postponed question is resumed at a later session. But when consideration is resumed at the same session, as may happen in a convention, all applicable orders remain in effect.
Okay, I can't.
When a main motion is postponed, one or more of the subsidiary motions to postpone indefinitely, amend, or commit may be pending. All such adhering motions are postponed with the main question. Similarly, when a main motion is postponed, it carries with it any adhering debatable appeals.
I don't know. To me, it even makes sense, Anthony, that once you postpone, I don't want to use the word irrelevant to take public comment, but it kind of doesn't make sense to me to take public comment because you're going to start the case anew the next time you hear the case.
Madam Chair, we're postponing to to put another step in the process for the applicant, which is a determination of status. This was not.
That is correct.
This was not presented to the applicant when they started this process. We're not, for instance, postponing for a redesign or an adjustment of design. We are rather saying that we are introducing the possibility that everything that the applicant has paid for and done in the past 5 or 6 months may go out the window based on that determination. I don't think it's fair for the board to make that decision. One, against the recommendations of the historic division that the applicant proceeded with, and two, without public comment or more consideration of the board.
Well, I'll tell you, it is not unusual for the board to take a different direction than what has been recommended by staff. If the board during the process sees that they need to take another direction, such as having the historic status review, that is not an unusual step to take.
I think it's a questionable one in this case.
And if Attorney Rubali doesn't find that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next case. And Mr. Strongwater, we'll see you hopefully as soon as possible. Thank you.
Can I just also clarify as a public citizen what I mean? Do I have any other rights to? I'm not even able to present any part of my prepared documents, or I mean, this is a very, I don't know how to make this clear. This is a exceedingly significant financial burden that the city is asking me to shoulder without any advance notice or clarifying. There's been no hint of this as being a problem. So is there a recourse here that we are able to take in any way?
Okay, I believe I have some.
Okay, hold on, Mr. Strongwater.
Okay. I'm looking at Robert's Rules of Order, 12th edition. I'm looking at section 14, postpone to a certain time or to postpone definitely. A motion by which action on a pending question can be put off within limits to a definite session. Motion can be moved regardless of how much debate there has been on the motion it proposes to postpone. Question may be postponed either so that it may be considered at a more convenient time or because debate has shown reasons for holding off a decision until later. Not to be confused with a motion to postpone indefinitely. At the time when a postponed question is due to come up, there may be another question pending or other business of a higher priority than the postponed question, but that would delay its consideration as fully explained in section 41. It takes precedence over the main motion, over the subsidiary motions. It takes precedence over a debatable appeal that adheres to the main question or point of order that adheres to the main question. So essentially, what I'm reading here is an motion to postpone definitely to a time certain takes precedence over debate on the main question. So from that, I would conclude that if there's a motion to postpone that has been duly voted upon, the debate on the main question is also postponed.
Yeah. So
we
do not entertain public comment.
That is correct. That's what I would draw from reading this section.
Yeah.
How all appeal has to be permitted on the postponed date. So, or I'm sorry, all debate has to be permitted on the postponed date. So that is, you reopen it for public comments and debate on the main question at that time.
Thank you. Member Guido, did you have something further?
Yes, and you know, the next time we meet on this case, we won't be debating the main points of this case. We'll be debating the status review. So it's not the same case that's being postponed. It's another case that's being interjected by the board. And I don't think that's fair.
Well, not necessarily, because both you can have status review and then you can have whatever changes the applicant is wanting to make on the project can be heard at the same time, at the same meeting, excuse me. Okay, Member Katz.
I just want to clarify what the specific date for the first meeting in April is, that this is postponed to. So that's clear on the record.
It is April 12th, Chair and Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, so April 12th. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Strongwater. We'll see you on April 12th, which is fairly quickly. We'll move on to the next case, which is located at 1149 Camino San Acacio. And this is Daniel's case.
Sure. Can I share my screen? So 1149. Camino San Acacio is in the downtown and east side historic district. Primary facades were designated according to this diagram in green. We had a little bit of discussion on our site visit about what those were. They are the north facade extending to where my arrow is pointing. The north, the west, and the south facades, I think that is fairly clear here. You can it extends to the point in which there is a corner. That means that on the north facade, this structure is not part of the primary facade. And this is also not a primary facade. That's this portion here. The next primary begins off to the right of the photograph. The applicant is proposing some changes that require exceptions. They include removing historic material on this front facade here to accommodate a slightly wider door, and constructing a portal which would extend essentially from this buttress to this corner. And then constructing over in this area, we have a provision that says that portals on contributing structures shall not be enclosed. And this would be enclosed. That's would require the further exception. We had a discussion about parapets. These historic and stone decorated parapets will not be touched or raised. The parapet that will be constructed would be at this portion here where there is currently only this kind of wood flashing. So that I hope clarifies some of the questions that came up during the discussions during our field trip. The applicant is prepared to present his case.
Thank you. Daniel, were there windows that are being replaced?
I would look at the staff report just to clarify that point. Place windows on a non-historic facade. These would be aluminum clad windows colored blue. So those are the windows. Yeah.
Thank you. Member Katz.
Yes, I am on that picture that we're looking at, right where the end is I'm not sure that that is a portal. I think that's a covered walkway between two buildings. And so I'm not sure that there's any exception that's needed for doing that. And the parapet, the letter from the architect talks about adding a parapet at the breezeway roof on the south elevation.
South elevation
And-
will be here.
And that seems to have been left out. Yeah, there, yeah.
So yes. that's
And that
correct.
needs no exception.
No, that doesn't need an exception.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members wishing to comment or ask a question, a clarification question? It appears not. I will take it to the applicant, and he's already been sworn in, and that's Will McDonough.
Yes.
Will, are you with us?
He's moving over to panelist. There we go.
Okay, yes, I'm with you.
Okay, Will, you have the floor. What do you have to tell us?
Well, I am going to share my screen
Okay.
and talk through some of the points that came up. So, so here's a closer view from GIS, and so here's the area that we're talking about. A portal here, and the walkway here, and the parapet here. And this property is one that you're familiar with. Some of the members of the board that we got approval, I believe, in 2019 to renovate this accessory dwelling unit. And we got approval for that. We've got permit for that. And my client began to change his focus to other things. He said, "Oh, let's work on the main house." You'll also remember that right here, my client had this part of the building torn down without board approval. And I came back to the board and apologized for not controlling my client well enough and got approval after the fact for that. We did do, with administrative approval, we changed the windows on the main part of the house from the aluminum sliders to the clad wood windows that are there, and redid this portal. So I want to speak real quick about the status review. So in talking with Nicole Thomas about how this status review went prior to my clients buying this property, she said that, and I'm sorry that member Beachside is not present, but what Nicole told me was everyone was in agreement about these primary facades, and member Beachside wanted this section here to be primary and not this section. So this is where the entry door is. But because someone looked at the definition of facade in the city code, and it said that there had to be a 4-foot offset if there was that one facade is continuous as long as there isn't a 4-foot offset, which I believe is more related to the escarpment code. But in any case, because of that, rather than leave this part not primary, it goes all the way down to here. So that's why for this walkway, and I'll show you on the, for this, here's the existing walkway. In order to close that in, as we're suggesting that we requested an exception. And so there's that part of it. So let's just assume this is primary all the way down to here. And what we're closing in is this, and we're going to create, and here's so it looks like this. We'll be putting some new windows in here, high windows. Here's the portal. Here's the new door. here's the breezeway we were talking about. Not primary here, and we're replacing those windows and putting a parapet along here. And that's what Daniel showed member Katz there. So a parapet along here and new windows here that look like this, new windows like this. Okay, so here's this section of the building. Here's the walkway. Here's that little portal there, but so this section is going to be closed in as our plan, and you just see a continuation of the parapet there with a little step down that all the water's on the roof is flowing down this way. There is a canale here. The intent is for this portal to mimic the existing portal, which you see on the west, that looks like this. So similar corbels, slight pitch and just a drip edge, so that the portal would not take away from the continuous stone coping there that is the most characteristic feature of this house. But putting in these double columns there at the front, just to give a stronger sense of the entry there. And so here are the windows in that section that we talked about, where we're closing in this area. So, that all of this, by the way, is completely not publicly visible, as you saw in your visit today. And I believe that that's, and we can look at more pictures. Here again is the proposed front door. My client, the owners, did a Photoshop of this to show what that looks like without the portal. But I believe it's a nice look there, and where the existing is this. So yes, we would remove 4 inches of historic material in order to, or maybe even 6 inches when all is said and done, to, well, no, maybe it's 18 inches of historic material in order to replace this door with a door and a side light. But that's what we'd like to do. And I believe that that's, there's the existing portal there that we are mimicking. So we'll mimic these corbels. So that's what I have to say, and
Okay.
let me know what questions you have.
Thank you, Will. Member Katz.
Yes, thank you. Will, could you put up the floor plan of the current floor plan? Okay. I was puzzled by the comment of the unclarity of what was meant by the north facade. And looking at, okay, stop. Where the portal is on the eastern part of that north facade, it seems to me that the rule that we were talking about, that 4-foot rule, would mean that the primary facade would stop right there, because it goes 4 foot back. And so that I don't think you need an exception for that. I think you probably applied for it already, and I'm certainly happy to grant it, but I don't think an exception would be needed on that point, because that's, I believe, where the primary facade ends, where it goes back 4 feet.
I'm not going to argue.
Okay. Okay, I have comments about the exception that you need for both the portal and the door, and the removing of historic material. And I certainly think that there is a necessity, a hardship, whatever, in having a door that does not meet code, that's not wide enough for code. But I'm not quite sure how that includes the side light. And I'd be interested to hear how that is essential to for the safety and the code.
And I wouldn't argue that it's essential for the safety and the code. I think it's a matter of aesthetics and the loss of historic material and the gain of an aesthetically pleasing and welcoming entrance, I think is worth the trade. That it isn't a matter of hardship there.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. McDonald? Or any comments? It appears not at this time. I will take it to public comment.
Madam Chair, I
Anyone
have a
from the,
comment.
Member Guida.
Hi, Will. A question about the north facade as designed. I'm a little concerned that the portal would cover some of those buttresses that are seemingly quite character defining on the north facade. Do you have any thoughts about that, or possibility of, reducing the size of that?
Yes, we thought about that, about just how wide to make it, and wanting some symmetry between where the door is, and because the buttresses aren't exactly symmetrical to the center line of the door. But there, yes, this part of this buttress does get obscured. And this one doesn't. But maybe if we're the door itself is not centered as it is, but we could center, if we're making a larger opening, we could center it so that that this would be matched on this side. It would have a similar look in relation to the buttress, so that it meets the buttress rather than covering it on this side. I think might be a good solution there.
I understand. Thank you.
And we'd be open to that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other board members wishing to comment at this time? I believe not. So I will again take it to public comment. Stephanie Beninato, you've been sworn in. What do you have to tell us? Oh, Stephanie, I cannot hear you. Stephanie, you're muted.
Yeah, I see. I just
Okay.
unmuted myself. Sorry. I agree with Member Katz about the side lights for the door. I can see giving an exception for the door to be wide enough to meet code for like ADA access, etc. But the side lights, the side window, is really not necessary, and I think it takes away, unnecessarily it takes away historic material. So I would ask the board just to allow the door and not the side lights. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this project? It appears not. I will take it back to the board and I will entertain a motion. Let's not be shy. Member Katz.
Yes, Madam Chair, in case number 2022-004876, HDRB at 1149 Camino San Acacio, I would move to approve the proposal as submitted with the exception of the side light on the front door, and find that the exception criteria for the portal on the north side on the primary facade, and that the removal of sufficient material to make the door wide enough to meet code have been met.
Thank you. Is there a second to this motion, and is there anything else to add to the motion?
Friendly amendment, Madam Chair.
Are you seconding it, Member Guida?
If that's necessary to make the friendly amendment, I will.
Would you please? Yes.
I'll second, and with the friendly amendment that the applicant return to staff showing a 3-foot door in that location, update the drawings accordingly, and if possible, bring the width of the proposed portal just a bit narrower as discussed in testimony.
I accept that as friendly. Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Will.
Thank you, Chair Rios and Board.
Next case is located at 1564 Canyon Road, and it's Angela's case. May we hear your report, please, Angela? The first case is for historic status review.
I'm sharing the screen. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yes, we can
Okay.
see it.
Okay. Yes. The address is 1564 Canyon Road, and it is a 2-part case. The first being the status review of an unstatus building. The main house of this property, let me get the site plan out. This is Canyon, and it's set way back off the road. And this is the existing structure in question this evening. It's an Adobe studio building that is round. The 2.7 acre lot has the main house, a guest house, a garage, a shed, and a chicken coop. And the main house is not part of this proposal, nor is the garage. The lot's really far from Canyon Road, as I said, and none of it is publicly visible. This is in the downtown and east side historic district. And the subject of the case is this structure. It is a round, obviously Adobe building believed to be built in 1972. Thus, it is before you for a status review. And the applicant has provided documentation about its history. This subject, it's about 806 square feet, and it's believed to be built in 1973, based on the owner's tax assessment record. And the 1983 survey lists this circular Adobe guest house as part of the property, but it does not indicate the date built. It's described as hippie vernacular style. It has wagon wheel windows. And 2 large pane glass doors. The applicant requests status determination and primary facades as applicable. The applicants provided a letter, regarding its construction and tax records that indicate the building was complete and entered into the tax base on August 26, 1972. Based on the letter and the tax record, staff believes that the structure is just under 50 years old. Staff recommends the historic status be maintained as non-contributing or be designated non-contributing based on its construction date per section 14.5. Sorry, 14-5.2C, the designation of significant and contributing structures. And the applicant is Beverly Spears, and she should be available to provide more information as requested.
Thank you, Angela. Any questions, board members, for Angela at this time, or any comments? Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Angela, your recommendation is based solely on the date, as far as I understand it. And it seems to me that the date's somewhat ambiguous. What we know for a fact is that by August of 72, this structure existed. We don't know how long prior to that it existed. Presumably it was somewhat close to that. So I think it's fair to speculate that it was within a month or two, but it's simply something that we don't know. It could have been now, or rather, equivalent to today, which would be 50 years. And in addition, I think the definitions are somewhat also loose as to whether a structure has to actually hit 50 years to be contributing, or just be approximately 50 years or older. So given that, it seems to me that one criterion wouldn't satisfy the inquiry as to whether this is contributing or non-contributing. So given that, what would be your opinion as to whether it otherwise would satisfy the standards? In other words, does it maintain the character of the district? I think I know what the answer would be, and I have my own answer that it wouldn't, but I would like to know what your opinion is.
Member Bienvenue, yes, it met the one standard, which is approximately 50 years or older, but just by, as you say, it's really a matter of months based on that tax record. And it is unique, and I want to say it contributes to the district, but not in the way that our code or the historic preservation, as I understand historic preservation standards, means. It does have unique construction. I think it's just a difficult one to apply our code to, and not being an architectural historian, I'm not making that judgment. So I think this is an interesting one for all of us, and I'm curious to see what the board finds, and as well as what the applicant can provide as one of our town's esteemed architect, Ms. Beverly Spears.
Okay, well, thank you. Just to put a fine point on the issue, the definition of contributing is it helps to establish or maintain the character of the historic district. And I think you're right, that presents the interesting interpretive issue here as to whether or not that means the typical types of architecture in that district, or the district as encompassing some unique aspects of non-traditional architecture as well. So I think that is what the board needs to decide, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Benvenue. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Angela, if the board were to determine that the structure was contributing, would you have any recommendations as how they were to designate a primary facade on a circular building?
Member Guida, you had to ask. I can't help.
That's a great point.
It's amusing. It's one facade in a circle. So how could it be anything more than one facade?
Very good.
Right. So it's the net effect would make it. It would make it significant in that all of its primary.
Points to some flaws in our code for sure.
Well, this doesn't contribute to the downtown and east side historic character per our code's interpretation. It does in the vernacular, but that's not my, it's not my decision. And I don't think that applies to the code. So.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay, board members, any other board members wishing to comment in reference to this particular case regarding status review? It appears not, so let's get the architect sworn in, and that would be Beverly Spears.
Okay. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Beverly Spears, 334 Pacheco Street, Santa Fe.
Thank you.
Good evening, Beverly. What do you have to tell us about this particular building?
Well, good evening, everyone, Madam Chair and board members. Well, I wrote a special letter basically to the board expressing my view about why this building does not contribute to the historic district. And this photo I took doesn't show, but some of them do, how you see the raw roof, you see this the skylights and the vents sticking out. And in no way does this represent what we think of as historic or traditional Santa Fe architecture. And I mean, you even see the black tar paper as part of the facade on that last photo. So I feel strongly that this building does not qualify as a contributing structure for the historic district.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Spears? It appears not. Let me take it to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular case regarding status review? I don't see any hands that are up. Oh, Stephanie Benenato's hand just went up. Stephanie, you are muted. Now you're unmuted. What do you have to tell us?
Thank you. I know that it is not traditional architecture, but if we are now wanting to preserve contemporary, mid-century contemporary, here's an example of a 1960s, 1970s, homemade studio that is all adobe. And maybe the roof isn't very good, or you see some tar paper someplace, but the structure itself is pretty sound. I do have, I think you would have a problem deciding what's the primary facade on it. But I think it contributes in terms of a very specific time period, and it is vernacular. It's too bad you can't say, you should preserve the circular part facing the street or facing the road or the driveway, whatever. And then you do what you want on the backside. And that would be, to me, a really great compromise. But I don't think that just because it isn't part of the more traditional architecture, that it shouldn't be considered perhaps as a contributing building. And again, the thing about the 50 years, I believe that Kelly Brennan, when she was city attorney, would say that, there was at least a 6-month kind of spread there. So even though this may have been recorded in August, it's, past that in terms of 6 months, in terms of a 6-month separation. Plus, I can tell you that in the 1970s and 80s, that the tax assessor didn't put your building on the rolls for about 3 years after you built it, so you could start building it, you could get it done, and then 3 years later, it would go on the rolls. So just using that is not necessarily a hard and fast date. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Member Katz.
Yes, Madam Chair. I don't believe that our code anticipates having buildings that are not in what is defined as the Santa Fe style, any one of the various versions of Santa Fe style, just because it's 50 years old. I think the intent of the code was to preserve a certain style of architecture. And this building does not represent that style of architecture. Yes, it uses adobes, but that's about it. And so on that basis, I would move to retain
And,
the status.
excuse me for interrupting you, Member Katz. Member Larson has something to say.
Oh, certainly.
Member Larson?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Rios. I just wanted to, point out that this is a, really interesting little building. And I really like seeing vernacular, designs, especially this one, which is, following, the sort of the green construction of the 70s. So, maybe it's not contributing, but it's a really interesting case, and it's, I'm glad to see something like this.
Thank you, Member Larson. I will entertain a motion at this time, Member Katz.
Yes, I agree that it's interesting, and I'm glad that most of it's going to remain pretty much as it was. But I would move at this time to maintain the non-contributing status.
Is there a second to this motion?
Bienvenue seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. So the building is non-contributing. Now, Angela, we will hear the proposal on the same project.
Right, looks familiar.
It does.
Okay. Okay, we've been around this a few times. Okay, so this is a proposal for a remodel of the round adobe building, remodeling and adding on to the southwest elevation. It's a 577 square foot addition. It's rectangular and will be in the Spanish Pueblo vernacular style with a flat roof, stuccoed walls and parapets. Sorry, this is the site, and this is wayfinding the vicinity. Canyons out here. Part of the proposal is to grade an existing driveway back to access this. Currently, you can only go this way. The existing guest house varies from 10 feet to 6 inches on the south and east elevations. And to 11.11 on the west elevation, 11 feet 1 inch. So the applicant proposes to remove all the wagon wheel windows, and the new doors and windows will be true divided light aluminum clad white with a linen exterior finish. The applicant also proposes on the west elevation a small bay window. It's north, which will have a small hipped roof with gray charcoal standing seam metal. 4 existing skylights will be raised as needed and a new skylight added, but all skylights will not be visible from any angle. The applicant also proposes to add a 360 square foot carport to the southeast of the guest house, and it will have wooden posts, round, vigas, and a flat roof, and wood will be stained to a medium weathered light brown. And like I said, the carport will be accessed by that new driveway extension I pointed out. A 5-foot 6-inch yard wall will be erected between the patio and the new carport, and an outdoor fireplace and low retaining walls will be added. And all the stucco will be L-raised adobe cementitious to match the existing house. And these are the existing, excuse me, where is it? These are the proposed windows. And there's the bay, and this is another sheet of the doors. And with that, staff recommends the proposal as it complies with the general design standards for all H districts, section 14-5.2D, and the downtown and east side design standards, which is section 14-5.2E. And I will turn it back to you all. Questions?
Thank you, Angela. Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Angela, thank you for the presentation. I just had a quick question on the demolition aspect of this, since I understand that we have to approve the demolition pursuant to the standards set forth in the ordinance. Is there a photograph of the coop/shed that's being proposed to be demolished?
I have a very poor grainy one, and I can pull that up while you all continue with your deliberation.
Or a description? I just don't remember.
I'm gonna, Beverly, I would ask that the applicant address that, since she knows
Sure.
the state.
Thank you.
Well, it's very weathered, almost black wood, and it's quite decrepit. And this site is basically on a hillside, a terraced hillside. And so over the years, dirt has partially buried this structure, and it's been used as a chicken coop for the last something like 30 or 40 years. And so maybe you all saw it when you did the site visit, but you might not have even paid any attention because, you know, it's pretty nondescript and very weathered.
Thank you. Anything further, Member Benvenue?
Well, I guess it's true. I didn't notice it when we did the site visit. And that's why when I saw the packet today, it jumped out at me that it was a fairly large structure. I think it's almost 500 square feet. And I was surprised that I hadn't noted it before. And now I just didn't see anything in the packet that actually described it or showed a depiction of it. So if we can see something, I think that would help with making sure the standards are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Benvenue. Any other questions or comments, board members? If not, Member Guida.
Beverly, this is a cool project. I really like the round building. I'm looking at the bay window that's there, and I struggle with our code, but it's obvious that a bay window may not meet district standards. I'm wondering if there were any other considerations between you and your client as to the design of the windows for the circular building. It seems to me that, I know wagon wheel windows would not be conforming either, but they seem to suit the building pretty well.
Well, I think the bay window does actually suit the building, and it's something that is extremely important to my client. And you could hear from her. She's, I think, tuned in, but she really wants to be able to step into that little space and look both east and west. So that is very important to her. And I think, it's not out of keeping with the historic district, because basically all over historic Santa Fe, people have enclosed like tiny portals with windows. Typically, often they're white, and this is very similar to that, in character and in appearance.
Thank you.
Anything further, Member Guida? And it appears no one else has a hand up for any further questions or comments, so I will entertain a motion. Oh, Carly has something.
I have the pictures of the coop / shed, so I'll go ahead and pull those up.
If I may, you can't see them on my screen. I just added those slides, but maybe if I didn't save it, it didn't.
Angela, let me know if they're different than what I've got here, and I'll turn it over to you.
It should be the same. You just sent them to me and I put
Okay.
them in the slides, but maybe they didn't take. So thank you.
Angela, feel free to narrate this if you'd like.
Okay. This is the area of the chicken coop. I believe this is the wall that we're looking straight at what would be the west or south fence line. It's behind the structure, behind this fence, if that's correct. And this is a picture of it from that's Cerro Gordo. So it's from this is from the north and west side. I believe this is the chicken coop. This is more of it. I guess that's the yard.
Okay, I'll go ahead and stop share. And
okay.
Unless if you have more, then feel free to go ahead and share.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for showing that, Angela. That absolutely satisfies any concern I had about the architectural or historic significance of the structure.
Yes, thank you for that. Beverly, what is the public visibility of that round building?
Well, as maybe you could see from the site plan, it is it's very far from Canyon Road, and so basically it's totally invisible from the public realm.
Yes, that's what I recall, and I just wanted to make that part of the public record. So board members, I will entertain a motion at this time. Who is ready?
Wait.
Oh, Carly, did you have something further?
Yes. Did we do public comment yet? I don't think we did.
No.
Okay.
Yes, we did. We did
Madam,
public. We didn't do
did it for
public
the
comment?
previous case.
Oh, no, we did public comment for the historic status. Apologies. I will take it to public comment. And I have Stephanie Bedonato. Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that the roundness of the building will be maintained when you're adding on. I really like the design, Beverly. So I think it'll be a great addition. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And sorry about that. Now I will entertain a motion. It appears no one else from the public wishes to comment. Board members?
I'll make a motion.
Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case number 2022-004721 HDRB 1564 Canyon Road, I move that the project be approved as submitted and that the demolition be permitted as based on a finding that all applicable standards set forth in the ordinance have been satisfied, but in the record.
Katz will second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much and good luck on the project, Beverly.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. It's a relief.
Yeah, you're welcome. We will go back to, is Richard Martinez available? Daniel.
Madam
are you
Chair,
still there?
I've heard nothing from Richard Martinez.
Okay, so sorry about this. Richard, an applicant for 342 Plaza Valentin. I will hear a postponement on this case. I will entertain a motion for a postponement. Since Richard could never get on and present the
Guida
case.
moves to postpone to a date certain.
Do I hear a second and do I hear a specific date?
State certain would be the next available hearing.
April 12th.
For April 12th, and do I hear a second?
Katz will second.
And roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Do we have anything under discussion items, Carly?
No, ma'am, we do not tonight.
I think I heard you say on the field trip that we're going to be giving awards sometime soon. What are those?
Oh, yes. Yes, that is an announcement. We don't, we have a tentative date of May 19th. We do not have a location yet. So I wasn't ready for the full announcement on that. But we're working on that. And we'll be looking for nomination opportunities pretty soon. But we will have more announcements at the next two meetings, and we do need to do a vote during one of those meetings. So the 12th and April 12th and April 26th are getting to be pretty packed agendas, just so that everyone is aware. But we'll likely need to do, I think, a vote during the hearing on the 26th, April 26th. And that's it.
Okay, and do you know if we're going to have an in-person presentation of awards, or do you know that yet?
It will, it is, the planning so far is for in-person, yes.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions regarding awards for Carly? It appears not.
I
Oh,
see it.
yes, Member Bienvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, I think it was my first time for that award ceremony. I found it difficult to think back over the prior year to do an adequate job of proposing any award winners. And I'm just wondering, since staff is so familiar with all the projects that have come through and have spent so much time on each and every one of them, if there's any possibility of receiving some recommendations in the various categories.
Yes, I think we will. I'm meeting on this later this week. We have a nice long list of all the agendas and all of the different cases that have come forward. So that is something I think we'll definitely have. Yes.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was going to say this. I say this every year. Most of our projects are in the Downtown East Side Historic District, but I'd like to spread the awards around if we can possibly do that, if we find projects within the other historic districts. Thank you. Attorney Rubali, do you have something?
Yes, I'm not familiar with these awards. I heard Carly say there's a tentative date of May 19th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And doesn't sound to me like something you need an attorney for. But if you do, I wanted to let you know I will be gone for a few days in May to my daughter's college graduation on the East Coast. And likely another attorney will be covering for the board meeting we're going to have on May 24th, I think that is. And I've already talked to my supervisor about that. And so I'll be out for a few days, and I'm sorry I won't be able to attend this award ceremony if it's on the 19th, but I'm sure whatever date you pick, there's somebody's not going to be available, but I just wanted to let you know.
I should say I also will be out of town on that date, but of course I don't want that to be a reason to
On
change.
May
the
the
date.
19th? Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay,
But as Frank just said, I'm sure no matter what date's picked, there will be people that can't attend. So I don't want that to be a reason to.
Well, the venue is becoming tricky right now. So that said, if it looks like there is an alternative date that needs to be chosen, then I will let you know. Right now, it's being planned in part based on because this is joint award ceremony with Historic Santa Fe Foundation and City of Santa Fe.
yeah. Well, it would be nice if all board members could be present, but if not, we'll have to make do with the absence of board members. Next, we have matters from the board. I do have this Friday on the 25th, we're all invited to the De La Peña House. That would, I hope that I will extend the invitation to Attorney Rubalid and also to Daniel and Angela. And I'm sure you all know where the De La Peña House is located, and I think we're meeting there at noon.
Yes.
Okay, so that's this Friday, and of course you all know it's a really interesting property, so it'll be very interesting, very fun to see. So this evening, I also want to compliment Angela. Angela, I want to compliment you for your preparedness this evening. I was happy to see that that you did not struggle. And I know that happens with its technical issues. And I learned something from Daniel in our field trip, and that was something that I had zero idea about. And that was that the planners and Carly, as well as the manager planner, they have to be very familiar with, I thought for me, I sit here and I don't have to mess too much with the computer, right? Well, they have to be cognizant of, I believe Daniel said 7 apps that they have to familiarize themselves with. So in the past, I was wondering, gee, I don't know why Angela doesn't quickly get on there, but I think that was part of the issue. And I want to thank, I don't know if Daniel helped you or someone from staff helped you, but however it came about, I want to extend my thanks to that person because it made things run a lot better. So thank you for that. Anybody else have anything else? It doesn't look like it. So our next
Angela.
meeting will be April the 12th. Did you have something, Angela?
I just wanted to thank you for the comment, and I want to thank Daniel and Carly for helping me get back to where I was.
Good.
And I'm in the
Yay.
office tonight where I have fast internet speed, so
Yeah.
I'm working on that at home.
It worked a lot better.
But Daniel sat with me, and yeah, Carly gave instructions. And
Okay, our next meeting is going to be April the 12th. And I do have to tell you, I'm going to have surgery on April the 4th. So, and I don't know what I'll feel like on April the 12th. So just a heads up. So I don't know if Frank, if you're going to be in or out of town for the next meeting.
I will be out of town.
Well, you better just change your plans, buddy.
Well, the question is whether I can still do the meeting.
Oh, that's right.
Even
We're
though
gonna
I'm not in
Zoom
town.
this
And
thing and
I hope not. But
and well, I don't know they'll have to take a poll on who's going to be present and if we're going to have a quorum, and maybe I'll be available. I don't know how.
I hope you'll be up and kicking.
I don't know about this old body, but anyway. Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Guido moves
moved.
to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all the time. And we're at 8:49. Good night.
Good night, all.
Yeah.
Night.